you doing? Thanks so much for being here. I'm instructor Dwayne Jenkins. Welcome to my channel. If you've been here before, I want to say thanks for coming back. If it's your new time being here, I want to say welcome. Here on this channel, we learn about playing guitar and how to get all the great, wonderful things we can out of those wonderful instrument, whether it be the electric guitar, the acoustic guitar, and the electric guitar. Now today we're going to be doing the lesson on Ace Frehley, some of the techniques that he does. It makes his lead playing just so awesome. And we're going to be celebrating two things. Number one, I got this really cool shirt from my friend Paul. So I want to say thank you, buddy. He sent me this and asked me to wear it in a video. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we're going to be celebrating 50 years of the Kiss Army. And it was their album, Kiss Alive, that came out in '75 that kind of broke them wide. They had produced 3 albums before that. They were having some problems getting those out there. People were coming to their shows, but they weren't buying their records. So somebody came up with the idea, hey, why don't we make a record of our live show so we can really get people to see and hear what we're all about. You know, so that's what they did. They recorded Kiss Alive in 1975. It was kind of like a Hail Mary. It was kind of like a make or break because, you know, it was the record company was just about out of money, and they said, well, you know, we're going to try this one thing like Hail Mary, and it's either going to make us or break us. Luckily, it worked, got the end zone, and boom, they went out there, and the rest is history, as they say. But anyway, I'd like to say a little bit of things here before we get started. I want to tell you, you know, my introduction into Kiss, because I can remember it like it was yesterday. I remember I was about 13, starting to get into listening to music and stuff, and I was listening to some Black Sabbath and AC/DC, and I had a cousin of mine who was a little bit older, and she'd been at the house, and she was listening to some music, and she'd left some of her tapes at the house. And she had left, she was going to come back for them later. But anyway, I discovered them, and back before a long time ago, in the 70s, you had what's called 8-tracks, and then you got cassette tapes that came out like in the 80s, and then you had CDs came out in the 90s, and so forth and so forth. So she had some of her 8-tracks there. And 8-tracks, I don't know if you've seen those, they're kind of big, they're like tapes, but they're real big. And I was going through them, and she had like Led Zeppelin and Boston, and she had this one that said Kiss, and it had these 4 faces on them, and I'd never heard of Kiss before, and I looked at it, and what the hell are these guys, you know? Kiss Alive 2. The hell, I never heard of this. So, but I was intrigued by the faces. I thought, wow, these faces look kind of interesting, you know, Gene Simmons' blood coming out of his mouth and stuff, you know. So I thought, so I put it in, and all of a sudden, since it was live, you hear the roar of the crowd. You hear this, you want the best, you got it, the hottest band in the world, Kiss. And then they come in with that guitar riff, you know, from Detroit Rock City. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na, you know, never heard it before, and all of a sudden, da-da-da-da-da, kaboom! Big old explosion. I was like, wow, man, that is cool, you know? And to a rebellious teenager, you just can't go wrong with that, you know? And that was my introduction to Kiss, and after that, I was hooked, and I bought all their albums and their tapes and their posters and all that stuff. And my main thing that I really liked was Kiss Alive. That was just, you know, phenomenal. But that solo that Ace Frehley does on Kiss Alive 2 shocked me. Just the way it's recorded just sounds so phenomenal. I wish they would play that on the radio, because it just sounds awesome. The way they record it, it's got a little delay on there, and it just sounds phenomenal. But anyway, let's get through all that. Let's get on to the lesson. Looking at a few things of Ace Frehley, some of the techniques that he uses. And I love this because I'm always teaching about the pentatonic scales, and the pentatonic scales are a great way to get started playing solos, you know, because they just go with everything. There's 5 of them. I'd highly recommend you learn 5 of them. We're just going to kind of look at the first one for now, the minor pentatonic. Ace uses this all the time, and not just Ace, but you got Ace and Jimmy Page and Jimi Hendrix and, you know, Tony Iommi and Angus Young. All the great guitar players use these. So I would highly recommend that if you're going to get started playing lead guitar, to definitely have these in your repertoire. It's okay to use some of those other scales too, the harmonic minors and the modes and all that stuff, but make sure you got a good solid foundation of the pentatonics, because those are the, you know, the foundation of it all, if you ask me. And all the great guitar players use them, and if you master them, then when you go to listen to their music and start to study their music and try to play some of their songs, you're going to understand where they're coming from. And I would highly recommend playing other people's music, because you're going to learn a lot of stuff from that. I know a lot of guitar players don't like to do that. They just like to write their own. And writing your own is great. I would definitely agree doing that. But if you work on learning other people's songs from your favorite players, it's going to teach you how to write better songs for yourself. Okay? So let's take a look at a couple things that Ace does. So, number one, the minor pentatonic scale. Now we're just going to play it right here in A, 5-8, 5-7, 5-7, 5-7, 5-8, 5-8. 8, 5, 8, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5. Okay? And you can play this all over. If you played here at the 3rd fret, it's G minor, same pattern. So you want to master the pattern, okay? Scale. It's a scale, call it a scale pattern. And it's called like a scale box pattern because it resides in a little box pattern right here, okay? So if you played it at 3rd, it'd be G, 5th is A minor, 7th is B minor, 8th is C minor, 10th is D minor, 12th is E minor. Same pattern, same notes. Well, not the same notes, but the same pattern, okay? So that's the very first thing. The second thing is, what you want to do is once you learn the scale, you want to learn the 2 different places you can play it. Okay, for instance, if you can play, well, there's actually multiple places, but we'll just say 2 for right now for sake of argument. Right here, if we're playing it at 5-8, we can also play it up here at 17, 20. So that's the second thing I would do, okay? Master the pattern and then master it in the 2 locations. If you're playing it at the 5th, you can play it at the 17th. Play it at the 3rd, you can play it at the 15th. And remember, your guitar has 4 dots here, and then it has 4 dots here. So past the 12th fret, the guitar repeats itself. So you want to use those fret markers for that purpose, to know that. Say, okay, well, if I'm, on the 3rd fret here, then that means I can go up here at the 15th fret and do the same thing. And that's going to help you get more out of the fretboard. Instead of just playing in one place, you now can play in 2. And if you learn all 5 scale patterns, you'll be able to master the whole fretboard. Okay, so number 2, play it in both positions. So number 1, get the scale pattern down. Number 2, be able to play it in both octaves, the lower octave and the higher octave, okay? Third thing is, you want to master the techniques that bring it to life, okay? Your hammer-ons, pull-offs, slides, bends, vibrato, those kind of things, trills, okay? Because that's what's going to bring the scale to life. If you just do this, that doesn't sound all that interesting. Not to say it wouldn't work in certain styles, but, it sounds a lot better if you do stuff like... See, those are hammer-ons, pull-offs, vibrato, things like that. So those are the things you want to learn. Now, what we're going to do today is we're going to look at a couple techniques, couple licks that Ace does, okay? And his solos. Like, for instance, probably the most popular song by Kiss is Rock and Roll All Night. We're not going to go through the whole thing, but I just wanted to show you a couple things here that Ace is doing. So, in the solo, he's playing it right here in A minor. They're tuned down normally half a step. I'm just in standard tuning. This lick, it's like an old Chuck Berry lick. All the guitar players use this. You definitely want to master this. I would say it's the #1 lick of all time is this right here. So if we were playing right here in A minor, what you'd want to do is take your 3rd finger, bend the 3rd string at the 7th string, bend it up. And you can use your 2nd finger to help. And then take your 1st finger, your index finger, bar the 5 on the 2nd and 1st, and play those 2 notes. So it's going to be like a... Okay, and you can also play it up here. Now up here you might have to, I usually use my 2nd finger up here because of the fact that the notes are, the frets get closer together. So up here I'll use my 2nd and 1st finger. So be able to play it in both positions. That's a very #1 lick, I would say, right there. That's used by all of them. All the guitar players, they all use that. So master that lick, okay? Second one is right here, you do what's called pull off, and then a hammer on to the here, to the 7 on. So we'll say we'll do like a pull off is when you hit a note and you pull off to the note that's behind it. So when you do a pull off, you want to have 2 fingers down, strike the note, pick this note, pull off to the note behind it. A hammer-on is the opposite of that. You pick the note and then you hammer on to the next one. So if you think of hammer-ons and pull-offs like adding and subtracting, a hammer-on is a hammer-on, you're adding a note, pulling off, you're subtracting a note, okay? So there we would do a hammer-on, pull off, and then another hammer-on. So this is a really good lick here as well that he does a lot too. Okay, so we'll just say a hammer-on, pull off. We're going to hammer on from the 5th to the 8th on the 2nd string right here on the B string. So we pick the 5 and then hammer on to the 8 and then pull off back to the 5. So maybe work on that a little bit first. It's a good workout for your pinky. Now if you don't want to use your pinky, you can always just stretch your 3rd finger and do it with that as well. But I would recommend the pinky because the more you use your fingers, the better. So do it with the pinky. That's what I would choose to do. However you want to do is fine. Now, after that, after we get that hammer-on pull-off down, then we want to take our 3rd finger and hammer on to the 3rd string, 7th fret. Okay? So you're going to use it together as one lick, like this. And also take a notice of what my picking hand is doing, because the picking hand is very, very important, okay? It's not just this hand. I know a lot of times when we watch videos, we watch this hand. It's not just this hand. A lot of times the magic is in this hand. This is the hand you got to be watching, the picking hand, okay? So if you look at my picking hand, I'm picking the B string, and then I come up and pick the 3rd string, the G string. So you want to master that as well. So you got 2 things you have to master. What this hand's doing and also what the picking hand's doing. Okay, so that's the second thing he does. The other thing that he does, which is Ace Frehley big time, his technique that kind of is what's called a trill. A trill is a repeated hammer-on pull-off. So let's say we're on the 3rd string and we did a hammer-on pull-off to the 7th fret from the 5th fret. Now if we repeat it like this, that's called a trill. Notice I'm not picking it or anything, just doing this with this hand. That's called a trill. Ace does a lot of that. That's kind of one of his signature licks. I like that whammy bar stuff. But anyway, he doesn't use a whammy bar. You don't need a whammy bar, don't worry about that. But anyway, those are 3 licks that he uses a lot. Okay, that first lick, that second lick, and then the trill. And you can do the trill all over the place, really. I mean, do it all over the place, okay? So, those are 3 licks that he uses, really, really cool. And I would recommend doing that all over, here, and then doing it up here as well. So, here's an example of what he's doing like in Rock and Roll All Night. Then he goes into the solo. Uses some bends, so he's bending the strings, and then they go back to that. And then he comes up here to the 17th fret and does the same thing. So, as you can clearly see, I was playing those licks here at the 5th, and then I moved up here to the 17th. And there's all kinds of different variations of them that you can do, okay? It's just a matter of just, working with the scale, working with the techniques. So make sure you work on your bends. Work on your slides, vibrato, okay? If you work on that stuff and you work with the scale, I guarantee that you're going to be sounding really, really cool with your solos. But it does take some time, you got to practice. So work on that. All right, so there we have it. A little bit of a celebration of Ace Frehley and 50 years of the KISS Army. I just think that's so awesome with KISS. I remember when I never got to see them like in the 70s. I was too young, and of course in the 80s when I discovered them, they had already taken off their makeup and they weren't all the original members anymore. So I never saw them during that time. But I was very fortunate that in 1996 they got back together, did the reunion tour, put on the makeup and all that, and I got to see them during that time. So I was really happy about that. They sounded awesome. It was almost like going back into the 70s. It was very, very cool. And so I'm just so cool. I remember when I saw that concert too, one of the t-shirts that they had on the back, it had like a newspaper clipping from one of the press agents from back in the 70s, early 70s, probably 74 when they first came out, and it was saying something about, you know, you don't need to know who the members of this band is because they're not going to be around in 6 months, you know. And here it is 50 years later, and they're still kicking, and it's so great. You know, they're celebrating, I think they're doing something in Las Vegas, I think later on throughout the year. Going to be KISS Army celebrates 50 years. So if you're out in that area, I'd highly recommend checking that out. Might be a lot of fun, and I think they're going to do a performance too of that unmasked. So that'll probably lead to something really, really cool. So well, thank you so much for being here. I hope you got something out of the lesson. If you want to let me know what your first experience was with KISS, let me know in the comments below. If you have any questions about what I taught you in the lesson, let me know. Be sure to check out my method books I have on my website. I have them on lead guitar, rhythm guitar, guitar theory, all kinds of great stuff to really help you out with your guitar playing. And if you need any help, I also offer private lessons. We can get on Zoom call or FaceTime or something like that. And you know, you might just need a lesson or two. You probably don't need a whole bunch of them, but you might have some questions that need to be answered, or you might be stuck. You know, sometimes when we play guitar, we get stuck in a little bit of a rut. Just like a car, you know, you're a little stuck in a rut. You just need a push to get back out and get back on the road again. So if you need that, be sure to contact me. Contact me on my website at dwaynesguitarlessons.com. We'll set up a time to talk on the phone. See what you want to accomplish. We'll get you there, all right? So thank you so much for being here. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for future notifications so you know when I'm going to load up my next video. And keep practicing. Learn to play like Ace. Do those licks I was telling you. We'll see you next time. Take care.